Namaste and welcome, beloved mighty companions. Oh my goodness, so much joy joining with you guys every night. Oh my gosh, thank you, thank you. All the expressions have been just so precious. It's so helpful for everyone. There's like such a willingness reflected here from everyone, like to look and seeing, and oh my gosh, it's so helpful to see that, like, this, the story, like the story for the desire to have a storyline of helplessness and just keep looking with Jesus. It's so inspiring with everyone. Everyone's looking so deep and seeing, and that we are divine beings and we have the power to see. This is so inspiring. This is the whole point of having mighties, to inspire each other. Whereas before, I didn't want to have anything to do with mighties, actually. Stay away from the mighties. Because the ego knows that when you start really joining in truth together, that ego can't last. No lasting for the ego. So I'm so happy. It's so joyful that we have, it's like a privilege. That's what it feels like every day, to come together and go, okay, let's see together with the power of infinite being, the power of infinite being in light. Like we do know what light is, but we kind of got confused and forgot. So we can trust that just the thought of light is just the thought of light. There you go. One single thought of light is so powerful. That's how powerful our minds are. One thought of God. Wow. So we're so glad you're joining, and it's just joyful for us. And there's just this willingness for us to keep coming together and go, all right, there's light here, infinite, unchanging. So we just look in the light of divine being, in the holiness that we are. Does the light know limitation in our direct experience? Our direct experience of light, not what we're told, what we know. Is there any limit in the light of divine being? Is there something here that transcends time and space? Is divine light an object? So we always start in these light circles. For anyone new that joins us, we always start with who we are, identity, which is divine light, infinite being. And then the tiny mad idea may arise, but once we've recognized that there's light here, the revelation, that's why these are called, circles are called revelation readiness, because we're ready to be assisted by Jesus, because Jesus, the Holy Spirit's in charge of revelation, Jesus says, but Jesus can put a word in on it. I don't know exactly how that works, but he says that I believe him, because everything else he's told me has turned out to be true. So this is the call to recognize light. We call to the Father. Our desire is to recognize light. Not the vision of this world, not the light of the sun, but the light within that can't be described. The infinite, changeless nature of being and beyond being. Before a thought began, before time began. Some spiritual teachers say, before your parents were born, where were you? Who are you? I am not a body. What am I? This is what we're here to really celebrate, that we're not a body, that there's something here beyond a body. So we start with that infinite light. that which is not an object, that which is untouched by time or space. We start there. And then now tonight, I heard chapter 12. And with everyone's expressions, it's been so great that Jesus is really bringing into focus this whole desire for a story of helplessness. What a great thing to look at with the power of infinite being, that itch. The wanting to have a storyline of helplessness. This is so deep, Jesus. But see, now once it's right in front of us and we can see it, it's like Teresa wrote. That was so gorgeous. Thank you for that, by the way. Love you out there. Teresa, I guess it is. Or Teresa. Not sure. You'll have to tell me. I've just seen your name. Teresa? Oh, this is so adorable. It's such greatness. This is, we stand on the shoulders of greatness with each other. Oh my God, it's so exciting. Okay. I mean, to see the desires so quickly, like this willingness, like I said before, and see, you know, the desires that we are starting to see we have, that we can just admit together. This is the glory of it, not to hide it. We just admit, yeah, I really do desire to be helpless. Help me, Jesus. Because if we don't see that we desire it, we won't step in and get help. Do you see? Because the whole world's a denial of these desires. All the anger, all the suffering, all that thing, it's like the cover over looking deep and go, wait a minute, I'm asking for this. And you wrote so beautifully, like, everything looks like, and everyone's been reporting this, which is so glorious, the desire for helplessness at its core. We can ask the divine light. Do all these desires have the desire for the experience of helplessness at its core? And powerlessness. So here we are, infinite divine being, and a number of you guys are reporting the humor, starting to see the hilarious nature of this. To be an infinite light. And then to see the insanity of it, I see it, starting to see this is insane. This is beginning to feel crazy. Is that glorious or what? That's Jesus's point. To be light, and everywhere we look, if we look as divine beings, everywhere we look is light. When we really focus on the light, we can see that we can't escape light. Can we escape the light of divine being? Even if we try and our direct experience is looking. We can't escape the light. This is the hilarious nature of it. So light's with us everywhere. We can't get away from it. And at the same time, we're saying things like, and I see this every now and then rising up, but at least we see it now. Where are you, Jesus? It's like the light's here. Ta-da. Da, 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 da. But the play in consciousness is to desire these experiences. Everybody's going like, ding, 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 ding. I get it. I really desire it. And it's like, yes, because then we have something, we have place to go then. If we're above the recognition that we're desiring this, like it's still in the play of emotions and feelings and, you know, we feel acted on. But if we can see that we desire to feel acted on, this becomes a whole different journey. A whole different experience, because then now it's just deep looking with Jesus. It's like, all right, I get it. I have chosen this. I have wanted to feel this. I have wanted to feel weak. Okay, show me. And sometimes we still don't want to look, you know. Or we kind of fall a little bit asleep in the delusion, but we can't be totally deluded, not for long, because we know we can start to see we're doing it. It's like, oh yeah, I'm like doing that to myself. You know, I'm an infinite being and I'm doing the miscreation. We were just talking about, Renee said that beautifully. She said, you can see The whole miscreation. Soon as you see that there's a denial, see that we're actually denying, there's a desire for an experience to say, no, I'm not divine light. Then you can see how the miscreation of the experiences of pain and suffering, but then you recognize how what's being given, what is already given, the infinite light, straight shot. Straight shot. The desire for a story. I love this on the cover. I don't know if you can see this, but you've probably seen it in the book. I love all these pictures. Can you see it? Kind of reflected, a little bit reflective. Oh, I can hold it up there. There he is. Yep, you can see it now. Good. Trust that because you have called me to you, that whatever is arising is in your best interest, as you are in the highest function possible. That gives me chills. For this world, we're in the highest function possible right now for this world. Nothing's more valuable than this, the recognition of your perfection as God made you. With a little crown. See that? The kingdom of heaven is sitting on our heads, and we're going, I can't find heaven. Where is that? We're so adorable. Pretty funny. But it's part of the humor. Buddha laughs. Doesn't feel very humorous if we still believe, we still have those desires to feel helplessness. We're going to feel like, let's just ask Jesus if he can help us clear anything here on helplessness. Jesus, is there any desire below my level of awareness or experience of helplessness? And I would like to place that in this light of all the love that's here with my brothers. And see what happens to the thought of helplessness in the light of divine being. Just notice when you put it in the light that's shared, what happens to the feeling of helplessness? Can it coexist with light? And then take the feeling of the desire, ask Jesus, let's just ask him first. It's so helpful to ask him first. Jesus, is there a desire below my level of awareness for any experience of victimization? And, for me, he'll say like, yes. It's like, all right, I get it. Okay. The slightest twinge of victimization, show it to me. And then when he shows it and just be with it and just place the whole thing in the light of divine being and see how long it lasts. The wanting of victimization, the itch for it is experience. I'm willing to put it in the light. I see that I desire it. So it's we admit, okay. And then see whether that feeling of victimization, the desire for victimization, that we're just checking that out, see if that makes it through a light, we call it the light handshake, which is free. See what lasts. Does the feeling last, or is the light more powerful than the feeling? In our direct experience as light beings. Sometimes we rename this the yawning circle, because when the energy of that suppressed energy that's held on to is released, sometimes we get a lot of yawning. Not always, but for some like me, I just yawn. It's like every time I work with Jesus, like nonstop yawning, because all that deep subconscious tension, which is suppressing miracle impulses. See, Jesus says that tension comes from not letting the miracles arrive. Miracle are what's natural to us express. through these desires to suppress it, to have these experiences of being limited. So chapter 12, desire for a story. This chapter is so helpful. Everything's helpful in this book for me anyway, because it helped me really start seeing these things in a course that Jesus was describing. They've been there all along. It's just, I guess I needed special tutoring. Look at this. Consciousness loves a story. That's what a consciousness is. The tiny mad idea is a story. Let's ask them. The divine light of being is the tiny mad idea of story. See, it's a fairy tale with dragons and demons and Tinkerbells and happy times and sad times. And, you know, it's like the roller coaster ride. That's consciousness. It's a story. Consciousness is a story with multidimensional visuals, feelings, sounds, tastes, smells, sensory experience. The Matrix, if you watch The Matrix, it's the Matrix. The Matrix that seems like you can't get out. Another great Matrix movie, short version of the Matrix movie, you can watch The 13th Floor. And as the experience here is, more I watch these movies and the deeper I go with Jesus, like, holy smokes, I don't know how they did these movies. They're capturing the whole gig. The whole gig of miscreation in the mind to blow an experience out of a three-dimensional visuals, smell, sensory experience. It's a desire for a story of sensory experience. Senses, taste, touch, smell. And then the ego goes, well, and because I taste it, because I smell it, like the fire that's burning out there right now, because I feel it, it must be real. It must be separate from me. Yet the light of divine being, how do we know that? We assume it's real. See, that's the assumption. That's the whole play in consciousness, that it's real. The wanting for a seemingly real experience of helplessness that comes through senses. I'm a body with senses, and because I can put and touch this chair, that means this chair is separate from me. In the light of divine being, is that true, though? Is anything separate from us? In our direct experience as divine beings. See, as a divine infinite light, we can't find that as being separate. So it's the play in consciousness to think that it is. The tiny mad idea, the mad idea, like he says, he's pointing right away that we're insane, pretending like we're separate from everything. The addiction to the story of falling asleep. So we can ask the light of divine being, do we desire a story of falling asleep? The story of relative experience, the story of things, one thing relative to another. That camera's right there, I'm right here, that means that's separate and I'm here. But is that true? See, we don't question that, we just make assumptions about it. Is that true that just because there seems to be a camera over there and there's space in between, does that mean the camera's separate? In the light of divine being, is the camera separate? In honesty of God. So it's an idea that it is. It's a desire to experience it as separate. So we can hide from how powerful we are. The story of not being powerful. Actually, that's the story of not being powerful and being helpless. And Jesus, I thank you for continuing to remind me about that. When those little moments of the storyline arise. That's why this is so great, because This does not allow the story to arise because we're looking directly at desire, the desire for the story. Otherwise, you spend a lot of time, you'll see that in consciousness, a lot of time going into all the things that happen. The things that are happened are too late. They're what masking all the story about this happened, and that 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 happened, is the mask overlooking to see, I desired for this to happen, and then this to happen, and then these, and to feel small when it happened. So I had the desire to feel helplessness. So helplessness shows up in all these different forms. And then the cover over the desire is the story about this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. In the light of divine being and honesty of God, does light know anything about a story? Infinite light of being in our direct experience. The light doesn't know anything about a story. Infinite light. Just keep focusing on the light. Just keep noticing the light that's here. We can because we're powerful, infinite being. The addiction to the story of falling asleep. We can ask, in the light of divine being, was there a story to fall asleep and forget the light? Hear what the light says about that. I get yes. We're so busted. Whenever we look at this in the light, we're like totally busted. The games that okay. In the light of divine being, is there a story of trying to understand what awakening is? You see that play? I don't understand what awakening is. Like, I did it, so I can say that. That's part of the play, to not understand it, to try to get a handle around it. Is it possible to get a handle around the light of divine being in our direct experience? Can we find a handle on divine being anywhere? See, it doesn't have a handle because it's infinite and it's everything. It doesn't have a, like, the ego likes, so I got a real handle on this. And we laughed about this. The first time we say we have a handle on divine light, we can just see whose voice is saying that. We just laughed about that because that happened here. Oh, I get this now. You know, I wonder how many times I said that wrong. Still the ego. The ego even tries to get hold of divine light. Okay. And the story of waking up for the dream. This is a deep one. Jesus, the light of divine being. Is there a desire for a story of waking up from the dream of separation? Did you hear that? Yes. It's like, oh, really? Okay. But at least we can admit it, that we want the story of it, the storyline. We really like the story. Okay. But the great news is the spirit is using the story to unwind us from the idea we want a story, because he has us watch movies so we can actually observe. So now we're learning to look from the perspective of infinite light to actually observe how consciousness denies divinity. The patterns that consciousness use. The clues, like Jesus has given us all the clues. The desire for helplessness. Do we feel at peace? Like, he's given us all the clues. What kind of questions do we ask? Do we ask questions to doubt identity, or we ask the only question that's of value? What am I? Do we ask, why is this happening? That's like an ego clue. Why is this happening? What are you doing? Ego clue. Those are the clues, because the ego, those are all questions that doubt divinity. But if you use those single point questions, what's it for? What's the purpose? See, he's focusing to us to really look, is this purpose of this for expression of divine being? So he turns the whole thing around and gives us the questions that have divine power to point us back to truth. Who are you? Who are we? I am not a body. What am I? It's to keep us looking. Okay, if I'm not a body, what am I? And that's to give spaciousness so the light can answer. That light will answer. If we're not a body, what's left? What remains? That's how Ramana Maharshi woke up. Because an uncle or something or died, so he's decided, I'm just going to check this out at 16 years old, lies on the ground, and just imagine himself dying. And he goes, wait a minute. He recognized something here doesn't die. Does the light die in our direct experience as light beings? Can light die? Is there something here that does not die? That's another deep crack in the code to see and recognize. Be willing to see that there's something here cannot die. And at the same time, even if we see, wait a minute, I can't die, it's awesome then to see the play of desire to death. And the experience of death is, even though we know we can't die, is to pretend to have the experience of limitation, which is an attempt to kill it, kill light. Through beliefs and desires of trying to kill the light. So we're trying to kill the light is to have an experience of helplessness, is an experience and a story of powerlessness. It's fascinating. See, so instead of getting involved in it, because we're so used to like jumping on the bandwagon, we were talking about that. As Muji would say, look, stay on the platform of infinite being. When the train comes by of thoughts, don't jump on it. Right? Don't jump on the train and go. So stay as the light. That's light training. Stay as the light. Don't jump on the train. And if you jump on the train, and someone said so beautifully, I don't know who I was talking to, but this was really a great observation. She says, but I feel like it's hard to get off. Then we can look at Jesus. Show me the desire to make it hard for myself to seem like I don't have the power. See, there it is right there. Oh, that's so good. Thank you, whoever told me that I'm helpless to get off the train. Do you see? That something is controlling me from seeing that I'm divine light right now. Whoa, that's deep. That there's something outside myself that has more control over me than right now, right here, seeing I'm divine, infinite being. And Jesus is just coming in so directly in the experience here. It's like, no, you're divine being. I needed that kind of straight talk from him for sure. I know, I can tell. I guess we're all given what we need. You know, that straight talk in Jesus, what was needed here. No compromises. And it was helpful. Then I could distinguish, you know, that direct, we were talking about that yesterday, how helpful it is. It's authority. Like we can say no to anything Jesus says, because we've been doing it for a long time. So we can keep that pattern if we want. Like for the voice for God telling us to do something. Well, what I realized, it's not a mamby-pamby. Well, you know, if you want to, it's very, and you can see it in the Ur text, the way Jesus, that's exactly how it feels here. The way he talked to Helen, you know, it wasn't, he was like direct, look, I'll take care of all the minutia. You know, it's like, and we see it in A Course in Miracles too. That's not a mamby-pamby kind of text. It's like, you believe that your brother can tear heaven from you. That's pretty direct. So thus we desire a story. Let's ask. That's a good one to ask Divine Light. Jesus, do I desire him? And see if there's any like a little energy on this. Do I still desire an experience in which my brother is tearing heaven from me? And see if he says yes. If there is, I'm putting all that in the light. Again, this is the Supreme Happiness Club. No pausing, do not pass go, put it all in the middle, right in the middle with each other. It's like, here it is. I desire helpfulness. I'm going to put it in the light. All desired experience, the story of seeing and exposing another belief or desire that denies the truth. Oh, that's deep. I really want to make sure that's absolutely crystally cleaned out if there's anything about that. So I'm going to look at that. Because the ego would have us work a long time clearing out beliefs. So that's why really it's good. That's why Jesus says, I'm just being clear with, yes. That's why Jesus said we have to ask him which miracles. I ask him. I just say, okay, is it okay? Is this something to work on? Is this something to look at? And sometimes he tells me no, and sometimes he, a lot of times with the desires, though, because there's so much willingness to see it, he's just saying, go. Keep looking. How about this one, Jesus? Yes. Can you show me this one? Yes. Help me. Help me find that. Help me see it. Help me clear it. What's the fastest way to clear this? We're just really getting tuned in to him helping us quickly move through these things. He was reminding me today, too, about how we're so used to praying for things and objects, or praying to make things different than they are. And he was reminding me, he says, I can't help you make things different than they are. From the standpoint of, he can help us remove the blocks, see what the blocks are. That's the function of the voice for God. The function of the voice for God is not to help us make the world real by agreeing with us that the world is real. Its only function of the voice for God is to show us where we're denying divinity and helping us to release that denial. So that's the kind of, and help us understand how we're denying ourselves. That's what the voice for God does. But I was seeing that, those subtle ways in which I could see. I was asking Jesus to try to, well, how about this, Jesus? Can you kind of fix this for me, sort of thing? And it's like, no, I could see, no, that it's helped me find that the greatest use of time is to help us find the denials and release them. Have what miracles to perform to release this from my mind, to see that it's not true. The story of understanding metaphysics of awakening, this is delay. So he's really pointing, that's why he's going to contemplation in the text and spending a lot of time with him on each line. See, so it's in these light circles are so direct, because now we're just looking directly. Here is the denial. Jesus, show me the denial. Two things he's showing, right? In the light circles, infinite light, to start with light, because we can. And then show me the denials and ask him, those kind of three things. So it's so unsparing. We're not spending a lot of time, okay, there's some things about consciousness and how consciousness works, but it's so direct to look. For me, this is like for me. This part of the story is helpful in a powerful use of time. So it's a story that we're releasing beliefs. We can ask the divine light. Is it a story to release beliefs in the light of divine being? Because it's in consciousness, but it's helpful. It's helpful. It's to unify consciousness rather than all the fragmentation that's experienced in consciousness. The story of that something is happening in the world, also delay. The story of mystical experience. This is delay. I've told this before, and it's helpful for me to be reminded of this again. And that is, I asked Jesus, what's a mystical experience? And he says, you're always having a mysticism is union with the absolute reality. And he says you're always having a mystical experience unless you deny you are, because we are unified with God now. Infinite being. So what the mind, so, okay, here comes consciousness. So we have that moment of perhaps that seems to rise like there's no body, no one, infinite. We can have it right now, actually, by just focusing on the light and see that there's nothing here. That's how simple a mystical experience is, really. It's not a fancy thing necessarily. Some may have mind-blowing kind of mystical experiences, but mysticism is recognizing that the light is here and staying as the light rather than sallying out, hunting for some play in consciousness to play. It's just merely staying as infinite being, peace, infinite peace, true identity, happiness. So what the consciousness then does through the desire for experience, it goes, this is how you know that consciousness has got a hold of it, a mystical experience. He said, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, yesterday, I had this amazing experience of no time. See, no time is now. No time wasn't yesterday, but that's how consciousness plays to make it a past experience. No time is available here. Infinite light doesn't know what time is, does it? In our direct experience, does the light know what time is? So it's mysticism is what's here. Whole, complete, and holy. It all appears to be an irresistible itch to describe what is happening and thus experience it. Let's ask the light. In the light of divine being, is there a desire to describe experiences? You can hear that, yes. We like it. We like to have an experience. Notice how we like to have an experience, but it's not enough just to have that experience. There's a belief that sharing is running over and telling someone about that experience. And we almost relive it. You notice every time the story is told, we relive the experience. Now, that's not to say that if you had a great day, you go home. There's nothing wrong with any of it. Do you see? It's just recognizing that it's a play in consciousness. The light doesn't judge the story. But notice how the ego will use a story for specialness. It's kind of like and we've seen this before when we've done it, kind of, when we're not feeling good about ourselves, we try to tell a story to feel better. We try to tell a story, look how important I am, for specialness. It's always, what's it for? Sometimes we tell stories to try to connect desperately. There's a being that he would tell a joke every 5 minutes. Even if he told it before, it was just an expression in consciousness, in innocence. Like, it's not to judge it. It's just so we can see the patterns in consciousness of wanting to tell a story to try to connect horizontally. We can't connect that way horizontally. Jesus teaches us how to use stories for divine expression in service to the whole. Service to love. That's why I always ask them before I tell a story. I just ask them, is it okay to tell this story? Is this an expression of infinite love? So that I'm not caught in those old patterns of telling a story to get something. Does that make sense? So that there's no, it takes, when I ask them if it's divine, it takes the person out of it. That's at least the experience here with stories. How does this, what's coming out of my mouth, does this serve the whole? It's just serving truth to help break any of those old patterns of wanting something. It feels yucky when we really look at that stuff. And I need his help, right? to really fine tune that, you know, not to be using any patterns of wanting, getting, the death trap, the Death Star, to ride on the Death Star of wanting. Stories describe the moving to cover over the unmoving that has no story. Does the light of divine being have a story in our direct experience as light beings? Does the light have a story? Can we find one? Light doesn't have a story. It is the story of what never happened. This is one of those the Jesus mind twisters. So I'll read it really slow. The greatest impediment to seeing what is being all that is, light. What is another term for light, because there's no descriptor for light. Yet we can recognize light, because as soon as we say that word, the light within. So the greatest impediment to seeing what is the belief in the story of what is not. And I think I mentioned that was hilarious. It's still, I have to still laugh. So I'm going to say it again. Yes, Jesus says I can say it because it's good for me. When he told me, you have a habit of focusing on what is not. See the story, focusing on the storyline. We focus on it and make that sucker real. We're going to feel it. And we're going to feel like it's real. So making the story, the fairy tale real, that something other than infinite light is here. Is the story of what is not. So like he was telling me, you have a habit of focusing on what's not, what is not, as the denial of what is. So using the story of helplessness, the story of powerlessness, the story something happening to a me. Can you see how potent these stories are? Because our minds are so powerful. And you'll notice too, we can start noticing these patterns too, how pictures get generated and we start thinking about stories, and we'll get a flashback to that time, and then it'll have emotions with it. Then we'll start having an argument in that story. This is profound, honestly. It's like, oh my God, I'm looking at the past and I'm having an argument with the past. Of course, Jesus is saying it's all the past. We're always arguing with the past, be that as it may. But like if there was an argument with someone from the past, if the grievance is still there, like if I haven't cleared that desire for that experience, it comes back, and then there's a little looping in there with the story. You know, if this didn't happen, and what if this was different, and why did, you know, this kind of thing. So we're starting to notice that. That's part of the pattern of helpless. I've been really talking to Jesus, like asking him for help around this mind. You know, he says mind wandering. You have a habit of mind wandering. He says that so clearly, and just really just being present and watching how the mind goes off on a little meander somewhere. It's a desired experience to meander, but it, you know, the meandering goes right into the hell zone. So it's ask them to keep it straight up, you know, with the divine being, because we can't be happy with all. Let's ask the divine light. Can we be happy with all that mind wandering? No. Does the light mind wander? It's allowing, it's being tolerant of the play in consciousness, the story. Mind wandering is storytelling. Yes, he's telling me that. So that was free. It is an addiction to a story about something which is actually nothing. That was really precious in Teresa's thing too. Like she's like totally seeing through it all right here. Let's see if I can find. But as you say, in the light of this divine love, can this be real? Let's just keep looking. It's so much happiness to see that it's not real. We can never be happy until we see it's not real and admit it's not real. Oh my God, it feels like a crazy mistake in the light. God bless it. That's the whole gig. That's why we can laugh, because it's crazy in that light. That's just glorious right there. That's why Jesus said the world will end in happy laughter, because you see all that insanity of that story is not true. It's an addiction to a story about something which is actually nothing. Remember, perhaps you've read, I can't remember exact words in a course, but it becomes the realization somehow through forgiveness, you just see nothing happened. How many forgivenesses that, this is a reminder for me too. How many times are we forgiven and we go, well, that was nothing. It's like, you know, gone. It's like you have total amnesia. I mean, you might remember something happened, but there's like no charge on it whatsoever. It doesn't stick around like glue. The glue, when these, and I try to avoid them too, boy, I just try to want to run away. It's like, why is this memory? I don't want to have this memory. Why does this keep coming? Because I hadn't healed the grievance. So it just, you feel like it's here. You know, you ever have like one of those stories in your mind? It's just stuck, you know, and you just don't want to even look at it. But the challenge is underneath all of it, we want it. That's very humbling to admit. Totally humbling. Oh. It's hilarious. Okay. Yet stories are fairy tales, and as long as it's recognized that it is a fairy tale, a play with no meaning whatsoever, the fairy tale plays, and the light that you are knows nothing of it. It just feels easier overall at the end of the day just to be the light. After all of this, doesn't it feel easier? Oh, really feels easier. It's like sometimes, what am I fighting against? You know, and you start to see I'm fight. The consciousness is the desire to have a fight with ourselves. Have a fight where nobody's fighting. You know, it's like Ramana Maharshi said this, and other teachers have talked about the light is like the screen of a TV set. The movie plays on the TV. Does the TV set have an argument with the light? Try to change what's happening in the movie? That's how the light is. The light is the light. And then there's the movie, three-dimensional movie that's playing, The Matrix. And then there's the habit of wanting to create a matrix and pretend like it's real and then go, somebody did this to me. So the code breaking is see that the light's here, ask the light for help, because the light is beyond the matrix. Like we can't, that's why Jesus says you can't solve it at the level where it is. You can't solve it in the matrix because we're in the maze. We're stuck. We created this world and it's made purposefully to seem hard to get out. Like it has a hard to crack code. That's why I need Jesus to come in, the code breaker of all code breakers. And then he gives us the code. Here's the code. Follow me. I know the way. I am the way, the truth, and the life. You're the way, the truth, and the life too, because you're the same as me, but you're pretending like you're not. So it's a good idea to listen to me. So then we have to follow the light, the little light breadcrumbs. And the breadcrumbs and leaves the powerful clues. See the power the mind has to miscreate through desire. So then we just go, Jesus, give it to me. Show me every desire. I'm willing to see it and put it in the light. See it, put it in the light. See it, put it in the light. The fairy tale plays, and the light that you are knows nothing of it. See, if we think we know, that's when we go right into the spin out of the story. That's how, the only way we can have perfect happiness is to stop jumping off the platform into the mind, not the mind, but the wrong-mindedness. See, we're the ones who are going to the end of the platform, jumping on the train and going, oh my gosh, something happened to me. I don't know what happened. Like this, that's face of innocence that he's talking about. Pretending like we don't know that we're choosing to jump on the train of thought. So now we're looking underneath the covers, we're pulling it back, lights here. All right, I admit it, Jesus. I want to be helpless. Oh, I want to be powerless. You know, you could just be with that energy of it. Like I said, I've just said, okay, show it to me. Keep giving it to me. All the powerlessness, let that just come right up in front. I'm going to look at it. Because then it loses its seeming power over us. Our own delusion. We've given all the power to the delusions. And we say, no, I'm looking at it. Because I'm a divine being. And Jesus says I can, and he's with me. This is perfect happiness. Amen. Any story believed is an investment in delay in recognition of what is here. Divine happiness. This is really supreme happiness. So I thank you to the Supreme Happiness Club, dedicated to the truth. We love you all from San Juan, Costa. Go for God. Amen.